Hi everybody! Welcome to the Bible Summary Series. Today we're starting in Leviticus. In the book of Leviticus, God continued to give the Israelites instructions for the laws they were to keep, the ritual sacrifices they were to make, and the role the Levites were to play as his priests. In Leviticus chapter 10, Nadab and Abihu, the older sons of Aaron, each took their censer, put fire in it, and added incense. Then they offered strange fire before the Lord, something he had not commanded them to do. Then fire flashed out from the presence of the Lord and consumed them, and the two men died. Moses said to Aaron, "This is what the Lord meant when he said, 'I will be treated as holy by those who come near me, and before all the people I will be honored.'" And Aaron kept silent. Moses then summoned Mishael and Elzaphan, sons of Aaron's uncle Uzziel, and told them, "Come and carry your cousins away from the front of the sanctuary to a place outside the camp." So they came forward and carried Nadab and Abihu, still in their tunics, outside of the camp. Then Moses told Aaron and his remaining sons, Eleazar and Ithamar, "Do not uncover your heads or tear your clothes in mourning, or you will die, and the Lord's anger will fall on the whole community. But your relatives, all the Israelites, may weep for those the Lord has destroyed by fire. Do not leave the door of the tent of meeting, lest you die, for the Lord's anointing oil is on you." So they did as Moses commanded. In Leviticus chapter 24, there was a man in the Israelite camp whose mother was an Israelite and whose father was an Egyptian. One day he got into a fight with another Israelite man. During their quarrel, the son of the Israelite woman blasphemed the name of the Lord with a curse. So they brought him to Moses. His mother's name was Shelomith, daughter of Dibri from the tribe of Dan. So they held him in custody until the Lord's will was made clear to them. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Take the man who is cursed outside the camp, and let all those who heard him lay their hands on his head, and let the entire congregation stone him. And you are to tell the Israelites, 'Whoever curses his God will bear his sin. Whoever blasphemes the name of the Lord will surely be put to death, and the whole congregation must stone him.' This applies to both foreigners and native-born Israelites. If they blaspheme the name of the Lord, they are to be put to death. And he that kills any man will surely be put to death. And he that kills an animal will make it good, animal for animal. And if anyone injures their neighbor, whatever they have done must be done to them, fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. The injury they have inflicted on another will be inflicted on them. And he that kills an animal, he will restore it. And he that kills a man, he will be put to death. You are to have the same law for both the foreigner and the native-born, for I am the Lord your God." So Moses told this to the Israelites, and they took the man who had cursed God outside of the camp and stoned him. The Israelites did exactly as the Lord had commanded Moses. In Numbers chapter 1, the Lord told Moses to count all the men in Israel who were 20 years old and above and able to serve in the army. But the Levites were not included because they weren't to serve in the army. Instead, they were assigned to work with the tabernacle and its transportation and all of its duties. And this is how many men they counted from the tribes of Israel. In Numbers chapter 3, God had Moses number the male Levites from 1 month old and older, and there were 22,000 males. Then he had him count the eldest sons from all the other tribes of Israel, and there they found 22,273 of eldest sons. God told Moses, "The Levites will be mine as substitutes for the eldest sons of Israel. For every firstborn son belongs to me, and the Levites' cattle are mine as substitutes for the firstborn cattle of the whole nation." Then the Lord told Moses, to redeem the extra 273 eldest sons above the number of Levites, you must collect 5 pieces of silver for each of them and give them to Aaron and his sons as the redemption price." So Moses received the redemption money and gave 1,365 pieces of silver to Aaron and his sons, just as the Lord had commanded. In Numbers chapter 10, on the 20th day of the 2nd month, in the 2nd year after leaving Egypt, the cloud lifted from above the tabernacle of the covenant. So the Israelites set out on their journey. They left the wilderness of Sinai and followed the cloud until it stopped in the wilderness of Paran. One day Moses said to his brother-in-law, Hobab, son of Reuel the Midianite, and Moses' father-in-law, "We're headed for the place the Lord has promised to give us. Please, come with us, and we'll treat you well, for the Lord has promised good things to Israel." But Hobab replied, "I will not go, but I will leave to my own land and to my own people." But Moses pleaded with him, "Please don't leave us, for you know where we can camp in the wilderness, and you can be our guide. If you come with us, we will share with you all the good things the Lord gives to us." So they departed from the mountain of the Lord and traveled for 3 days. The ark of the covenant went ahead of them and showed them where to rest. And as they traveled, the cloud of the Lord hovered over them during the day. And whenever they carried the ark forward, Moses would proclaim, "Rise up, Lord, and let your enemies be scattered, and let them that hate you flee before you." And when it came to rest, he would say, "Return, O Lord, to the countless thousands of Israel." In Numbers chapter 11, the people began to complain about all their troubles. And when the Lord heard them, he became so angry that he sent a raging fire burning among them, and he destroyed some of the people on the outskirts of the camp. Then the people cried out to Moses for help, and when Moses prayed to the Lord, the fire stopped. So that place was called Taberah, which means the place of burning, because fire from the Lord had burned among them. One day, the foreigners and the rabbles who had joined the Israelites began lusting for other things to eat. And the Israelites also started wailing again, saying, "Who will give us meat to eat? We remember the fish we ate freely in Egypt, along with the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. But now our soul was dried away, and there was nothing we see at all beside this manna." Now remember, the manna looked like coriander seed and was pale yellow. The people would go around gathering it, then grind it in mills and make flour out of it or crush it in mortars. They'd cook the manna in pots or make it into flat cakes, and it tasted like something made with fresh oil. And when the dew fell on the camp at night, the manna would come down with it. Then Moses heard the people weeping and crying at the door of their tents, and the Lord became extremely angry, and Moses too was highly displeased. "Why have you afflicted me," he asked the Lord, "and brought this trouble on your servant? What have I done to displease you, that you have placed the burden of all these people on me? Did I conceive them? Did I give birth to them? That you should say to me, 'Carry them in your arms, like a nurse carries a baby, to the land I swore to give to their fathers.' Where am I to get meat for all these people? For they keep crying to me, 'Give us meat to eat.' I cannot carry all these people by myself. The burden is far too heavy for me. If this is how you're going to treat me, Lord, then please kill me, if I have found favor in your eyes, and put me out of my misery." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Gather 70 of Israel's elders, whom you know as leaders and officials among the people. Bring them to the tent of meeting, so they may stand there with you. And I will come down and speak with you there. And I will take some of the Spirit that is on you, and put it on them. And they will share the burden of the people with you, so you will not have to carry it alone. And say to the people, 'Sanctify yourselves for tomorrow, for you will eat meat. For you have wept in the ears of the Lord, saying, Who will give us flesh to eat? We were better off in Egypt.' Now I, the Lord, will give you meat, and you will eat it. You will not eat it for just 1 day, nor 2 or 5 or 10 or 20 days, but for a whole month, until it comes out of your nostrils, and you loathe it, because you have rejected the Lord who is among you, and have wailed before him, saying, Why did we ever leave Egypt? But Moses protested, Lord, there are 600,000 men here, besides all the women and children, and yet you say, I will give them meat for a whole month? Even if we were to butcher all our flocks and herds, would it be enough to feed them? Or if all the fish in the sea were gathered together, would there be enough? And the Lord said unto Moses, Is the Lord's hand waxed short? You will see now whether my word will come to pass to you or not. So Moses went out and told the people what the Lord had said. He gathered 70 of their elders and had them stand around the tabernacle. Then the Lord came down in a cloud and spoke with him. He took some of the spirit that was on Moses and placed it on the 70 elders. And when the spirit rested on them, they prophesied and did not cease. However, 2 of the men, Eldad and Medad, had remained in the camp. They were listed among the 70 elders, but they didn't go out to the tent. But the Spirit also rested on them, and they prophesied in the camp. And a young man ran and told Moses, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp. Joshua, son of Nun, who had been Moses' assistant since his youth, spoke up and said, Moses, my lord, stop them. Are you jealous for my sake? Moses replied, I wish that all the Lord's people were prophets, and that the Lord would put his spirit on them. Then Moses and the elders of Israel returned to their camp. Now the Lord sent a wind that drove vast amounts of quail in from the sea, as far as one could travel. In every direction around the camp there were quail flying 3 feet above the ground. So the people went out and gathered quail all that day and throughout the night and the next day too. No one gathered less than 60 bushels. Then they spread them out around the camp. But while the meat was still between their teeth, and before it could be chewed, the Lord's anger burned against the people, and he struck them with a severe plague. So they named that place Kibroth Hattaavah, which means graves of greediness, because they buried the people there who had lusted for other food. Then from Kibroth Hattaavah the people traveled to Hazeroth and stayed there.
When the people grumbled in the camp, fire fell from the Lord's hand. A burning wrath at the edge of the camp, a judgment across the land. Moses lifted up his voice, Lord, save us from this blaze. The fire ceased, but the hearts stayed cold, and still their voices raised. Oh, winds of quail and fires of wrath, desires that never end. Hearts that long for Egypt's feast, forgetting their true friend. Manna falls like morning dew, yet still they yearn for more. The hand of God is reaching out, but they crave the world they had before. Oh, who will give us meat to eat? The foreign tongues did cry. We miss the fish, the garlic, the taste of Egypt's lies. The manna fell like coriander, pale as desert sand. But the people's souls grew bitter, longing for another land. Oh, winds of quail and fires of wrath, desires that never end. Hearts that long for Egypt's feast, forgetting their true friend. Manna falls like morning dew, yet still they yearn for more. The hand of God is reaching out, but they crave the world they had before. Moses cried in desperation, Lord, this weight is far too great. These burdens break me, crush my soul, I cannot carry their fate. Gather the elders, the Lord declared, and I will share my might. For they'll taste meat, not 1 day's worth, but a month to their delight. The quail flew in by the ocean's wind, a feast spread all around. But the people's greed was their downfall, their hearts were earthward bound. The spirit fell on 70 men, and 2 more back in camp. Yet while the meat was in their teeth, God's anger struck like a lamp. Oh, winds of quail and fires of wrath, desires that never end. Hearts that long for Egypt's feast, forgetting their true friend. Manna falls like morning dew, yet still they yearn for more. The hand of God is reaching out, but they crave the world they had before. Hatava, they called the place, graves dug deep in the sand, where greed met death and lust met loss in a barren, broken land. The journey continued to Hazeroth, a lesson carved in stone. The Lord's provision is more than bread, His love must be our home. Oh, winds of quail and fires of wrath, desires that never end. Hearts that long for Egypt's feast, forgetting their true friend. Manna falls like morning dew, yet still they yearn for more. But God's hand reaches ever close, calling back to Him once more. Winds of quail and manna's grace, whispers of a love so wide. If we would turn from Egypt's ways and let His Spirit be our guide. Fires of wrath, yet mercy song, echoing through the years. May we find our rest in Him alone, beyond our worldly fears.